Today I'm taking a little bit of a stroll through Brompton Cemetery. Now this is a garden cemetery, they refer to it as, and it was laid out specifically to be one of the mega cemeteries of that time. There were 7 of them constructed. They referred to them as the Magnificent Seven, a very good marketing term. They planned these out and tried to make them as pleasant looking and as appealing as possible so they could sell plots for the cemetery. Now this was to combat the growing problem of churchyards being totally full and not able to accommodate more burials. Now this one was later, even though they were all privately built initially, this one was later sold to the city. And so you'll notice big differences between, say, this and Highgate Cemetery because this one is now city-owned. Now, Highgate Cemetery, you would have to actually pay an entrance fee to go in it, which is kind of odd for a cemetery, in my opinion. And it's not very well maintained. There's trees, and it's just overgrown beyond belief. Here, where it's better maintained, and it's controlled by the Royal Park Service. There are quite a few people buried here. This is a 39-acre cemetery, and it was constructed in 1840. Now the current number, I believe, is around 205,000 people. Most of them don't have markers or monuments, but there are 35,000 monuments in total on the grounds. And just about every walk of life is here, from the average person to military heroes, actors, politicians, and there are 12 recipients of the Victoria Cross, which is Britain's highest award for gallantry. But anyway, I'll just give you a quick tour through here, and I'll put some of the notable folks that are interred here in the description. And I'll give you a quick tour of the garden cemetery. Now there are quite a few notable interments at this cemetery, but I'll just concentrate on a few today for the sake of a short video. Now the first one that I'm coming to is Emeline Parkhurst. Now if you haven't heard that name, she was a women's rights advocate at a time when women could not vote. So she would campaign for the rights of women, unmarried and married, to vote. And she is partly, her and her supporters, the reason that British ladies can vote today. So it's quite a notable figure. Now shortly after her death in 1928, they erected a statue that stands to this day by the Parliament building. All right, and here is her grave. And again, she died in 1928. She was quite a tough lady. She was jailed several times for her activities, some of which were pretty harsh, as you may already know. If not, you can read about that on the internet. I won't go into that here, but she later in life sold her house and traveled extensively throughout Great Britain and the United States, campaigning for women's rights, and is quite a notable figure. This grave is fairly easy to find, as it is right on the main road that comes in from the Brompton Road entrance. So if you come in from that entrance, which you'll see in just a moment, I'll pan around, it's on the left-hand side as you're walking from that direction. Okay, there's the entrance to the cemetery as you're coming in from Brompton Road. And the next grave that I'll go to is the one for Dr. John Snow. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you might be familiar with his work. He is noted as discovering the cause of the Great Cholera epidemic, which killed quite a few people in a short amount of time. Long story short on that one, he pinpointed on a map the different outbreaks and traced it down to a single pump, water pump that was pumping water that had cholera infection or contamination in it. And at that time, they believed it to be other things, and he had a hard time convincing folks, no, it's definitely coming from contaminated water. He removed the handle on that particular pump, and that was the end of that. So he is credited for being the father of epidemiology. And not only that, he pioneered a lot in anesthesia. In fact, the Queen Victoria at that time trusted him enough. He put her under anesthesia for 2 of the births of her children. So he had the trust of the Queen, and rightly so. He was way ahead of his time. I believe in a survey he was recently voted one of the greatest doctors of all time. But he is buried here in Brompton Cemetery as well. This gravestone, you'll notice it looks a little bit newer considering the time frame. He died in the 1800s. This is because in World War II a bomb hit right here, as it did, all over London. Got bombed heavily by the Germans. One of the bombs damaged the original stone that was here, and this is this is a replacement stone. Now, as I walked in this morning, they were mowing in the front part of the cemetery, so I guess they just haven't got to the back part. I had just mentioned how overgrown Highgate Cemetery is, and it looks like this is too, but this is nothing compared to Highgate Cemetery. They just need to mow it, and it looks like they're going to do that today. Most burials occurred at ground level here, but they do have catacombs underneath as well. Those didn't seem to be as popular, I guess probably because of the price at that time, but those still remain unfilled completely. They actually offer tours through there too, if you're interested in seeing that. I won't show that on this video, but this gives you an idea of how tight the burial spaces are. Okay, and lastly for today, I'll take you to the one grave in here that's probably the most well-known. And anytime you look at Brompton Cemetery, almost every picture that comes up is of this one. It's the largest monument in the cemetery, I believe, and it's to a lady named Hannah Courtoy. And she died in the 1800s. Shortly after this cemetery was built, and it's definitely the most unique monument here, I believe, with its size. It's about 20 feet tall, and the local folks here call it the time machine. And there's been speculation over the years that it's some sort of time apparatus. And on one side, it's got an iron door with some Egyptian symbols on it, which lends credence to the legend there. It's quite impressive. And her and her 2 daughters are buried in here. Evidently they died shortly after their mother died. I'm not sure what the cause was. This is quite unique. It's sealed on 3 sides, and then on the 4th side there's an iron door. Evidently the key was lost many years ago, so it hasn't been opened in decades. But, yep, it looks like. Let's go around this side here. The door is actually, I'll turn around here, you can see the door. There's the facing outwards. And then there's the iron door. Let me get up a little closer. I'll get some of the segments on the door here in a moment. It's a lot easier to see in the wintertime when the leaves are gone. There's not so much shadow on it. Here is the front door. Well, anyway, this has been a quick look at Brompton Cemetery. It's on London's west side. And kind of an interesting place. Come out and see it if you get a chance. Thanks for watching.